and all of y'all, and I mean everyone on both sides of the aisle, has been a part of it. And so it's unfortunate that at a time when we should be celebrating and doubling our effort to raise the quality of life for our citizens, we find ourselves embroiled in this battle that seems to never get out of this building. And year after year, you heard me say that we are promised by insurance companies that if we pass this, Governor, if you support that, they will lower our rates. And no one has been able to show me the empirical data under which, when we've done any of those things, that the rates have gone down one bit. Not one bit. And some say, well, the legislature watered down the bill. Well, I mean, even if they got half a loaf, we should get half a rate cut. And last year, in response to this, you all recognized it, and we passed 27 bills aimed at addressing the insurance crisis and enhancing our business climate for the insurance companies. That list came from them. And each time, insurance companies have told us that specific changes would solve the problem, we all accepted them at their word. We were asked to trust them, but we still have no ability to hold them accountable if they lie. Now, last year, as we worked to pass those bills, major business journals like the Wall Street Journal and Forbes magazine published story after story about the high cost of automobile and home insurance in this country, not just in this state. At the same time that those articles were being written, insurance companies continue to report record profits while our rates continue to rise. And of course, this is frustrating our citizens. It's frustrating your constituents. I've heard y'all pleas. They have asked us to come here and solve it. Now, there are those in this Capitol and outside that profit off of this fight. They really don't seek a solution. They simply want to gaslight us and cause more divisiveness, and they profit on it, but never, ever, ever really want to give us a real solution. All last year and through this year, I have poured not only through the data, but through the legislative history. And to summarize what I found in the data, which I went over in my opening speech on Monday, is that our accident frequency in this state, the number of accidents that we have in this state, is in line with the national average. Our repair costs, how much it costs to fix the cars, seems to also be in line with the national average. Now, I will admit to you, when I saw this statistic, I had to look a couple of times through the numbers. But contrary to what some of those that gaslight us have told us, our injury claim severity, means how bad someone is injured in a wreck, is actually lower than the national average. However, the outliner, and it's not just a little outliner, it is a huge outliner, is the number of minor injuries claimed in the state, and it is double the national average. When you see things like that, that's what the FBI normally calls a clue. What it tells you is that we have the same number of accidents in Louisiana compared to the rest of the country. We have the same extent of damage to cars, less serious injuries than the rest of the country, but our residents claim a minor injury in car accidents twice as much as the rest of the country. Now, there are those that believe that we're plagued by frivolous suits, and I can agree with them. And maybe that data point is the best key indicator that proves that they're right. But if they are right, the tort reform measures that I spoke about on Monday addresses them better than any path you have had before in this capital. It looks at what jurisprudence is saying in this state, and it says we got to correct it. It looks at the data, and it says we can correct it in the courtroom. However, the people that we have elected to regulate insurance in this state, year after year, decade after decade, it seems, for whatever the various reasons or excuses that they may have had, seem to be unable to fix the problem. Let me be clear. I want our insurance commissioner to be successful. I really believe that there's not one person in this room or in this state that doesn't want him and that department to be successful. However, we are consistently top 3 in the nation in the highest auto insurance rates in the country. Even though we have adjusted, for those that were here before this term, our tort law again and again, at behest of the very industry that has put us in the top 3 highest auto insurance rates in the country. And yet the rates still go up. And that's unacceptable. And so the only way I can figure it is if you keep trying to do the same thing again and again, and you're getting the same results, and the results aren't that good, you have to try something different. So as I looked through the data and I looked through the legislative history, I said, well, why don't we just try a balanced approach? And let's see how much chaos we can cause. Seems like we got everybody upset. That means we're pretty much on a pretty good road. We should, and we should think about it. We should no longer restrict the people's access to their courts without guarantees that the rates are going to be reasonable. We keep taking rights away, for good or for bad, maybe so, but then we don't have any guarantee that those people are going to get the results, meaning that their rates are going to be reasonable. And that's a fact. So we should no longer promise our citizens that we're going to do all we can if we cannot support true reform. Never before have we come here to this Capitol with a more balanced approach. Both you and the Senate Insurance Committee labored throughout the year, hearing testimony and asking questions. I'll watch y'all. Some great testimony. And so the record on this is really already established. That points to this balanced approach. When insurance rates continue to rise, we have to look at the underlying claims. Logic would dictate that states with the highest claims would have the highest insurance rates. Shockingly, that's not the case here. Let's look at some of our neighboring states: Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and of course, Texas. In 2023, Louisiana had the lowest loss ratio in this group. Auto insurers, on average, paid out 66.09 cents on the dollar of premiums they collected from our consumers on liability coverage. In Florida, they paid 76.2%. In Texas, they paid 76.4%. And that has held up over the past 5 years. Now, some say, well, we got to look at 10. Well, the insurance companies only use a 2 or 3 when they come here. Now, all of a sudden, they want to go to 10. But even if you look at 10, those first 5 were bad, but you see it getting better. So you use the last 5 years. Our loss ratio is competitive with Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama, and our citizens are not getting the rates that they got. And it's lower than Florida and Texas. However, out of this group of states, Louisiana is the only one with a low loss ratio and high premiums. Liability coverage in Louisiana is twice as expensive as it is in Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi. Mine and your citizens are charged 25% more than in Texas, which tells us that something is clearly wrong. Because if the companies are making profits more off of Louisiana than our neighbors, we should be in line with it. So we must ask the question, why? And if we take what we've been hearing again and again, it's, we got to adjust the tort law. But we do it. It's not like y'all haven't done it or we haven't done it before, and yet we have seen no relief. Insurance companies are touting record Wall Street profits. That's what they tell Wall Street. You can see it. It's in the data. In 2022, auto carriers in Louisiana collected $1.4 billion more in Louisiana than they paid in claims. Auto insurance rate increases, listen to this, accounted for over 10% of the CPI inflation our citizens got in 2024. You wonder why they so mad? That's the data. Doesn't matter if it was me or anyone else looking at, that's what the data tells us. But yet, the biggest insurance companies have reported record margins, which continue to send their stock high. They love Louisiana because they come over here, they complain to y'all, we do something. We're in the second quarter. Everybody else is out. I want you to know this. All the other legislatures around the country are mostly out. They're in the first quarter. We're in the second quarter. If you're an insurance company and you are a publicly traded company, the most important thing is your quarter. So they get to come over here in the second quarter after they went and raised a bunch of hell in other states and got their stock driven up. They come over here and they use us like a bunch of puppets. And then on the second quarter earnings, they say, let me tell you what we did. We did a few little things. Stock goes up, your bill goes up. Why? Or is Louisiana bearing more than our fair share of these rate increases? And if you look around the South, if you just look around and say, well, I don't understand. Why is it? What is different? That is what we are supposed to do. You say that all the time. Well, let's look at Mississippi law. Let's go to Texas law. And we go through. Well, the one thing that stands out is that we in this state are powerless to stop them. An insurance commissioner's job is to ensure that rates are reasonable. That's why we elect them. In all of our neighboring states around us, the insurance commissioners can review rates and reject them if they are excessive, if the profits are unreasonable, like it seems to be here in Louisiana. But we can't tell because we can't see, and we got no power even if we noted the numbers or what I'm saying. We notably do not allow our insurance commissioner to perform this function anymore. At one time, the insurance commissioner had that authority. This body took it away from them. Listen to this. We are the only state in the South where the statute says the rate in a competitive market cannot be found to be excessive. Now, think about that for a second. We're talking about a product that our citizens are mandated to have. And if I was thinking about two gas stations in a rural part of Louisiana, You know, when you go through some of the rural parts of Louisiana, you better stop at the gas station because you might not see another one until your tank's empty. And if you got two fellas right across the street from each other, they're controlling the market, you got to buy the gas there. When one goes up, the other one don't go down. Unless there is something to pressure them, they will continue to allow the price to escalate. And I'm not disparaging our gas station owners either. But that is basic economics. However, it's different here. We are mandated to buy this insurance. It is why you are mandated to regulate it. Customarily in the past, the insurance commissioner allowed insurance companies to build a reasonable profit factor in their rates. What I have been told is that before Commissioner Donlin was elected, the commissioner used to, through a desk rule, kind of like customary. Y'all know about customary around this building a lot. Don't really have to be in the rule. You've just been doing it so long. It becomes like the rule. And they would build and allow them about a 3 or 5% underwriting profit. Now, when Commissioner Donlin came in, he increased that to about 7 to 8%. Now, I feel very confident he did it in pretty good faith, believing that an increase in the insurance company's profit would allow competition to drive down the cost. How many times have y'all heard that? Did that happen? No. But our current insurance commissioner is on record as saying he's not going to do that anymore. In fact, he will not impose a cap. That's on the record. That's what he said. That's the wrong way. Remember, this is a mandated market. The free market rules do not apply when the consumer is mandated to buy something. We say, and we've heard, that our tort law is inadequate. Well, we're going to adjust it. The problem is our insurance laws are inadequate too. The question is, are we going to have the courage to adjust it too for the betterment of our citizens? When the commissioner comes here to testify, I see he's here. He's going to come right here. I encourage all of y'all to ask him the same question. If we pass every bit of tort reform that has been filed in this Capitol, ask him how fast, or any of these insurance companies, how fast and how low our rates are going to go for their citizens. If he can answer that in the positive, then I would say take whatever he says and put it in the statute, and we'll be good. But if he can't, then y'all should pass this bill. Because I know what he said on the record again and again. I know what I've been told is they can't guarantee us anything. He admitted to this very body in those testimonies that we had that he is simply a paper pusher. He does math calculations that he's been given with no real authority to determine the numbers, whether the numbers he's adding are even real or not. He said that, again, I'm here to make him successful. This bill helps to make him successful. It helps to hold those that come here and promise you that the changes that you're making to the legal system are going to bear fruit for our citizens. But that don't happen in Louisiana. No wonder the other states get such a sweet deal. No wonder we get the short end of the stick. If we empower the insurance commissioner with the ability to hold those that are profiting off of our misery accountable, then we'll have the power to ensure that the rates are lowered every time you touch the law. This bill, HB 576, with the proposed amendments, gives the insurance commissioner the authority to evaluate and reject excessive rates regardless of the market conditions, and it is modeled after Mississippi. And I'm going to tell you why. It was suggested to me by an insurance CEO. Said, why don't we just do what Mississippi does? I said, well, we'll take that. Because I looked, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi. The list goes on through the South. All of the insurance, we're the only ones. Go back to that statement I made. The only ones that have that statement in our statute. The only ones I have poured through the law. Y'all got some pretty good lawyers here. If y'all can find it, I err it. Please let me know. I'm sure the press will. I don't know how many good lawyers they got. But this statute will remove the roadblocks that have stood in the way of meaningful rate regulations, like burdensome hearing requirements, unfair placement of the burden of proof, and automatic expiration of non-competitive market designations. And the people of this state are demanding that we fix it. They don't care who does. They really don't. I don't either. But they want a solution. The question is, are we willing to really truly give them a solution? Or are we just going to kick the can down the road for another year and come back and have the same fight again and again? This bill, House Bill 576, is the critical step towards reining in this runaway cost. Now, the last time I checked, I've yet to find a politician not willing and eagerly to accept more power. In fact, most of the time, y'all are there making sure, trying to rein power in. They're all there trying to take it. And yet today, it seems that the Department of Insurance seems to buck that trend. That's an interesting. But if the department doesn't want the power, well, then why don't y'all take it? If y'all going to take all the heat, why don't y'all take the ability, create a commission, appoint a commission, do whatever. But at least have the ability to hold people accountable. If you don't want it, then give it to me. Because I am tired of facing our citizens and hearing them cry and me not have the ability to actually give them the relief. And then continuing to come over here and hear those that are gaslighting us after we've changed the law again and again and again and again. Now, if we would have changed the law each time we adjusted the tort law and we start to see rates come down, I'd say, well, now we got something. But the data doesn't prove that. I am going to beg y'all to stop this circus. We have gone around this state again and again, and all of y'all, well, let's look over and see what they're doing in Texas. Let's see what they're doing in Mississippi, what they're doing in Florida. We have an opportunity to do something that an insurance company said would be good. Give our commission the power to be successful. That's what I am here offering. I am offering to give that department the opportunity to give our citizens the relief necessary. I thank you for your time, and I urge y'all to send this bill to my desk. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Governor. And we do have a couple of questions. I want to start with this. You alluded to the special legislative committee meetings, the joint meetings that we started back in July, I believe, and over the past 8 or 9 months, we've had several committee meetings. I think they've been very helpful in identifying some of the issues, and I think we've got some legislation that has come out of those special committee meetings. If I'm not mistaken, this particular bill is the result of a recommendation that was presented to the Senate Judiciary A Committee on February 5th. There was a report commissioned by the Louisiana Association of Justice, prepared by a gentleman named Jay Engoff. Mr. Engoff's claim to fame, at least on his website, is that he was in charge of the implementation of Obamacare. Now, that has been a little concerning to me. Some Republican members of the committee have expressed some concerns about that fact as well. Could you address that for us?
Look, I saw the testimony. It's kind of what caught my eye. I didn't do a background check on him. But this bill, these amendments that we put together were written by her and I late last night as we checked the Mississippi Code. And I looked, And the Mississippi Code, this Mississippi Code was put in place when Ronald Reagan was the president. So I don't know about anybody else's background, but it's been working in Mississippi since 1988. Okay? And so, again, I think, Mr. Chairman, it's the disappointing part of the people who gaslight us, trying to get us to keep fighting, which we've been doing. And believe you me, I've watched it. I've been in this building a long time, and this fight's been going on, and we still haven't seen any relief. So I would tell you that what you have in front of you mirrors Mississippi. I'm sure there are folks that will come up here and say it's not perfect or we shouldn't think about change. But you know what? It is demonstrably better than what we have today. Demonstrably. And you know what? I'm so committed that whatever mistakes we make, I'll bring y'all back. I think our citizens deserve it again and again and again until we get it right. So let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good to give our citizens some relief. But thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just real quick. First, I don't know any relationship to Obamacare, Mr. Angoff, but he is the former insurance commissioner in Missouri for 6 years, and he was deputy commissioner of insurance in New Jersey for 13 years. But if I may, when it comes to this particular bill, the person that drafted this particular bill was Governor Jeff Landry. I mean, I saw him personally at his laptop drafting this amendment last night and sending it to you all. So, and what he was doing was looking exactly at the code from Mississippi and drafting that language off. And I'm no expert on these matters, but I am getting old enough to where I have a little bit of history. From 1948 to 2008, we had an insurance rating commission. It was a 7-member panel, 6 members appointed by the governor. The other member was the commissioner, or his designee, of which I was for 6 years, chaired the insurance rating commission. And around 2005, because look, much like you're hearing today, we need competition. There's impediments to insurance companies doing business. The one thing that we heard more than anything when I was at that insurance department is that insurance rating commission has to go away. It's an impediment to us doing business in Louisiana. That's the number one thing y'all can do to have us come to do business and be more competitive is get rid of the rating commission. Well, the first thing we did was we implemented flex rating. And what that meant was you could go up and down 10% without prior approval. And within 30 days, you could start using that rate filing. It didn't go in front of the rating commission. That didn't make anybody happy. So in 2007, we came to the legislature with a bill to abolish the rating commission. At that time, that's when this competitive versus non-competitive language went into the law. And it's until then, the rating commission could deny in whole or in part any rate filing for any reason they saw fit. Okay? Well, under this, it went the complete opposite. The commissioner shall not have the ability to reject a rate for being excessive. And that's what this bill is doing. And the governor wanted to be very fair. Everybody acknowledges that Mississippi rates seem to be lower than ours. People keep saying that maybe y'all should look at Mississippi and these other states for what they're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. And so the amendment that I'm going to offer up later is exactly tracking Mississippi language.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown. We've got a question from Representative Bagley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor, this question for you. You have mentioned several times about the rates, and just to clear for the people that watch at home and in our districts, has the commissioner had the power to regulate rates? And you did touch on it earlier, but just to clarify for folks at home, in the past, did they have that power?
Yes, the commissioner in the past had the power. Then there was a rating commission that was established, but there always was someone or a body that had the ability to regulate the rates. Now, the funny thing, Representative Bagley, is when I mentioned that, I said, well, in the past, the insurance commissioner had that. I had some fella tell me, oh, we can't give that back to him because he's going to go to jail. I said, now, wait a minute. We took the power to regulate the insurance commission, to regulate rates away from people because we couldn't elect somebody honest. I said, well, I believe that Tim Temple is a pretty honest fella, and I don't think he would go to jail. But you're right. We had the power, well, not we, but the department had the power to regulate those rates before. And that's why I think we should give it back to him.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem Johnson.
Governor, good morning. Thank you for joining us over here. I got to admit, it is a lawyer's dream to have the governor of the state of Louisiana at the table under oath for us to ask questions. So
Only y'all.
I've got a couple for you. This committee, led by this chairman, as well as the Civil Law Committee, led by Representative Muscarella, as well as our speaker, have, as committees and as individuals, been all over this state. We've met regularly for almost a year. We've had town hall meetings. We have talked to lawyers. We've talked to citizens mainly, but we've talked to insurance companies. We've talked to our friends on the trial bar, and we have tried to come up with some solutions, working together across the aisle. It is troubling to me. Maybe this isn't a question. It's troubling to me when I hear reports that you, as my friend, and my friend, the insurance commissioner, have not spoken. Now, I've seen this in numerous reports, that y'all have not spoken since May or June of last year. And I just wonder if you'd like to tell me if that's true, and if so, with all the hard work we're putting into it, why that's the case.
Well, Representative Johnson, I really do appreciate you asking me that question. I get to clear the record here because it's simply not true. I spoke because I heard the commissioner say that last week, and I'm not saying he lied, he just probably forgot. But I spoke to him specifically about insurance in September at GOSEP during Hurricane Francine, where I requested the department, like many times before, to issue an emergency rule immediately as that storm was coming onto the coast to stop insurance companies from dropping policyholders. Him and I had this conversation, of which he did not. And it wasn't until I sent him a letter saying, look, I get it. Maybe you knew here. Maybe you don't know, but let me show you what all your other predecessors have been able to do, the power that you have. And thankfully, once the storm passed, they issued the letter retroactively. And so the reports that he and I are not talking, I find to be unfounded. I spoke to him yesterday. In fact, yesterday evening, I invited him over to the mansion to walk him through all of these issues. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to clear the record, but I have done everything I possibly can to put before y'all what I think is the most balanced approach. And it's not something that is an advantage to one side or the other. It's an advantage, I'm hoping, to the citizens of the state. But thank you.
Well, I have another question.
Sure.
I heard you say earlier in your testimony that Louisiana laws have been inadequate to help lower insurance rates. And you're presenting a plan that you believe will make a difference. We have worked very hard. And in fact, yesterday, the second day of legislative session, we passed 6 bills that your staff was here and I believe put in green cards on most, if not all. Now, I will tell you, the trial bar is not a fan of any of these bills. And my question, since you're under oath and since I have this rare opportunity, if these bills come to your desk, Glorioso's transparency bill, Gallet prescriptive period on wrongful death, Chenevere on modified comparative, DeWitt on no pay, no play, Chance Henry on notification, and Mellarine on evidence. If we get that to your desk, will you sign it?
Yeah, look, y'all, whatever y'all send to my desk, I'm going to sign. However, I will tell you this. If you do not give the insurance commissioner the power to lower those rates, I will bring y'all back.
But the first part of that answer is the one I mentioned.
That's right. Well, but Mike, listen, I appreciate that, Mike, because, again, I think that represents the balanced approach.
Thank you, Governor.
Now,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jordan for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Governor. How are you this morning?
Great.
Good. You know, I appreciate the fact that I get to go after Representative Johnson because it goes towards my line of questioning. Governor, I guess part of my concern, and I agree probably with about 95% of what you said today, what I heard you say. What I do have a little bit of a concern about, though, is this narrative that the insurance companies versus the trial bar. And I heard you say something about that we have less severe injuries, but more minor injuries. And then you follow that up with frivolous lawsuits. Did I hear you correctly? Let me state that first.
What I've said that I've heard our citizens and many people say that they believe that the reason that the cost of insurance, auto insurance, is so high is because of frivolous lawsuits. That's what I said I've heard them say.
All right. Is there any evidence to that?
Well, that's what look, Representative Jordan, I don't know. But if you look at the empirical data and you see that there's one place that's an outlier, and that is the number of small injury claims, you could say that could be. I don't know that yet.
I understand that, but I guess if I took those small injury claims and said, okay, we made them more severe to bring us up to the national average with the more severe claims, where would the minor claims be? We could calculate and
the minor
work
claims
numbers.
are double, the severe are less. But
But so I'm just saying, so we could work with the numbers. But I guess my point is this: when we talk about frivolous lawsuits, we talk about, from my perspective, I'm talking about suits that are either fraudulent or they're without merit. All right? How many people, I'm not saying it never happens, but as a percentage of all the suits that are filed, how many people go to jail for frivolous lawsuits or fraudulent claims? It's made the news maybe once or twice, or over thousands of suits that are filed, we can point to maybe one or two instances where somebody actually went to jail for something that was actually fraudulent. You'd agree with that?
that's what it seems like. But you'd have to ask the Supreme Court to keep that record.
All right, no problem. But where I'm going with that, then even more, we said even with that, loss ratios, let's go to that, they account for claims paid, verdicts, payments, all of that, right? You would agree with that?
Well, what I have, let me just say this, because I want to, I found something interesting, I had it in my notes, that there's two different ways they calculate the loss ratio, right? Sometimes it's just the, see where did I, because that caught my attention late last night. There can be a very lower loss ratio, but higher expense factor. It depends on how they're calculating the loss ratio.
But the actual loss ratio is considering all that. So if we talk about expenses, those are things
That's right.
Expenses, those are things that the insurance company can control. Whether if they want to pay their CEO $100,000 or $1 million, they can control that and affect some of that. But we're talking about pure loss ratio. And you're saying that that companies are making more profits in Louisiana than they are in our other southern states. I think I heard you say that.
I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what the data's saying. I'm repeating what the data says.
That's what the data says. So let's go with that. The data says that. And the data says that despite the talk that we have about tort reform and frivolous claims and all those things. So even in this current environment that we have, if we didn't pass another tort reform law, not a one, not any of those 6 things that Rep. Johnson just talked about, based on the empirical data, insurance companies are doing better here in Louisiana than they're doing in those other states. Wouldn't
That's
you
what it's
agree?
showing under the current environment.
That's what it's showing.
But-
So why would we get into this whole thing of tort reform and go down that narrative? That's the 5% where I think that we have a disagreement, because we're still partially buying into this narrative that it's lawsuit abuse and tort reform that's the problem, and that's the fix. That's not the fix. I think what you're doing today is a fix. And I agree with you, and I'm going to be with you on this bill, with the amendments and all. And I think my friend from the West Side, Chad Brown, is being a little bit modest when he talks about his expertise. I think he's got a lot of expertise in this area. But let's not, I'd make a request to you, Governor, respectfully. Let's not continue to repeat this false narrative of tort reform and that being able to drive down rates when we have insurance companies making more profit here based on the empirical data than they're doing anywhere else.
Well, Representative Jordan, let me just clear this up. I found a portion of my notes. So the NAIC loss ratio shows only the partial price, which shows premiums collected versus claims paid.
There you go.
The combined loss ratio includes expenses and cost, many items, which I talked about in my speech, like advertising expenses, defense attorneys and others, that they don't. Okay? Look, that's why this bill is so important. We can disagree or agree. Me and you can disagree, and me and Mike can agree on some tort reform measures. But the one thing that we should all agree on is that if we make a change, if the body wishes us to make a change, because they're telling us we should, then we have to have the ability to hold them accountable. And the whole idea is to try to drive the expenses down, but we got to be able to see it. And we got to be truthful. And so again, I know you as nauseatingly tired as me of hearing it go back and forth. That's why I've offered, I know you don't like it, it's okay, to adjust the tort law in ways that I think you can, to see if I'm correct, I might be wrong, and then be able to hold them accountable, because if we adjust the tort law and the price don't go down, or we don't have the ability to force the price down, then we absolutely know something's wrong.
I would make a slightly different request than my good friend Mike Johnson. I would ask you that if a bill comes to your desk where there's not been historical or empirical data that shows that it will drive the cost of insurance down, that you not sign it. Or that you veto it, because even if you don't sign it, it could go into law. So no, I'm asking you to veto it, because look, we've got enough states that have implemented these laws, and it hadn't shown that it's gone down, and we've got some states that have the same laws that we have right now that have cheaper insurance than us. So all I'm asking for is it to be a data-driven approach, not a emotional or feel-good approach, or something that we can go out to the public and just to say that we've done something, because we've done that for the last 30 years, and it really just has not been beneficial to our citizens. And I know you and I want the same thing, and I think everybody in this room wants the same thing, to see lower insurance for our citizens. I have no doubt that you are committed to that. I just want it to be based on science and data, and not some rhetoric that we've been given. As you say, gaslighting.
Well, I would just hope that the bills that show up on my desk support the data. That's what I'd say. I would hope that the bills that come to my desk to sign for the people of the state support the data and give us the ability to regulate the industry like the other states do. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Governor, members, we've got several other questions, and some of these questions are going to be for the governor, some for Vice Chair Brown, but let's stay on House Bill 576. We seem to have have strayed just a little bit. So what I'd like to do at this time is, Representative Brown alluded to an amendment that you had, and so why don't we go ahead and take up that amendment? And Governor, I think we're good for now. If we've got other folks that want to speak, and if are you willing to come back if you're still around?
I'm not leaving. I mean,
Okay.
I won't go far, but I'm happy for you to dismiss me.
Wait, you're dismissed temporarily, and Vice Chair Brown on the amendment, and I believe. Well, if you want to offer that motion, then we'll read in the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm going to offer up a set of amendments. I think it's 1265. And Ms. Keith, and then I'll go ahead and explain.